Have you ever felt that the universe was waiting for you to look, as if a hidden doorway would open the moment you turned your gaze? Imagine that every thought, every glance, every breath you take is not merely passing through life, but actually shaping the world around you. In the minutes ahead, we'll explore how your awareness is the most powerful tool you possess, why the simple act of observation creates reality, and how you can harness that knowledge to turn coincidence into conscious creation. Let's walk together into this remarkable insight, feeling each word settle like a gentle ripple, and discover how to move from passive watching to active co-authoring of your life. From the moment you become aware of something, that thing springs into existence. Before your attention lands on a sound, a color, a story, there is only probability of endless possibilities overlapping and waiting for a choice. The instant your focus settles, the field of potential collapses, and a precise configuration of words, images, and vibrations solidifies before you. You are not merely watching a scene that was already set, you are bringing it into being with each breath of attention you give. Reality, then, is not a stage where events unfold on their own. It is a mirror that reflects back whatever you choose to look at. Quantum physics repeatedly shows that particles behave like waves of possibility when unobserved, yet snap into definite form the moment they are measured. This isn't a mysterious oddity reserved for scientists, it is the very principle that underlies every moment you live. Your consciousness is the brush that paints the canvas of experience, arranging each pixel and each note of sound in response to where you direct your awareness. The reason you are here, watching these words, is no accident. Long before you pressed play, the field was already aligning circumstances, nudging subtle impulses through people, events, and even the algorithms that guide what you see online. It set the stage for your timeline to intersect with this moment, and you sense that alignment as a quiet recognition stirring beneath logic. The truth is simple but profound: you are not inside reality, reality is inside you. Your attention holds power because wherever it moves, energy follows. You might have noticed the pattern of thinking of someone and then hearing from them, or visualizing an outcome and watching the world bend to meet it, and dismissed it as coincidence. Yet each time you notice the pattern, it becomes harder to ignore. The universe does not react to you because you are a separate part of it, it reacts because you are the observer who creates it. Consciousness and matter are one continuous field expressing itself through observation. Everything you experience springs from that relationship, including the rhythm of your breath syncing with the cadence of these words, because energy seeks coherence with the observer. Across the multiverse, another version of you may be reading a different message, hearing different words formed from the same sea of possibilities. Each consciousness draws its own reflection from the same source field. There is no single objective video waiting on a server, there are infinite potential configurations, and your observation selects which one manifests. Science calls this wave function collapse, mystics call it creation. Both point to the same truth: observation is the bridge between possibility and form, and everything you touch, think, and feel passes through that bridge. The world around you is a projection of observation condensed into sensory experience. It is not happening to you, it is happening through you. Every fear, desire, and question vibrates through the field, and the field answers by shaping itself into matching forms. You have been taught to think reality is independent, that you are a tiny speck in its vastness. But the moment you observe, you alter it. The double-slit experiment proves it. Light behaves as a wave until someone looks, then it becomes a particle. The universe responds to consciousness because consciousness is the essence of the universe itself. Without an observer, nothing exists in definite form, and that realization changes everything. Awareness is not a passive backdrop, it is a creative force, the silent engine that summons matter into being. When you focus on something, you are not merely noticing it, you are commanding the quantum field to organize itself according to your observation. The more consistent your focus, the more stable the manifestation. That is why patterns repeat in your life. You keep observing the same emotional frequencies, the same expectations, and the field keeps producing versions of reality that correspond to them. Observation is not limited to the eyes. Thought is observation, feeling is observation, belief is observation. Every layer of awareness sends instruction to the field about which probability to crystallize. A person who believes life is hostile observes hostility everywhere. A person who believes life is kind sees opportunities unfolding at every corner. The difference between them is not luck, but where consciousness is looking. The same mechanism that holds galaxies in equilibrium responds to your smallest thought. Each photon, each electron awaits your recognition. It does not judge what you choose to observe, it simply reflects. This neutrality is the true power of the universe. You are free to create harmony or chaos, depending on what you sustain with your observation. The field is pure potential waiting for direction, and when you realize this, you stop feeling like a victim of randomness. You begin to see every coincidence as communication between you and the quantum fabric of existence. Even your doubts are forms of observation, and they manifest evidence to confirm themselves. When you understand this, you start to withdraw observation from everything that no longer serves you and place it only upon what you wish to expand. The field obeys instantly, though the rearrangement may take visible time because dense matter resists change. The principle, however, remains immutable. Observation creates. Without it, nothing is. In recognizing this, you hold both humility and power. Humility because you see how vast consciousness truly is, and power because you see that you are that consciousness. Ancient mystics describe the same truth using words like awareness or self. Modern physics describes it with mathematics. The essence is identical. Existence is the act of being observed. Close your eyes for a moment and notice what remains when you stop observing the external world. Sensations fade, thoughts drift, yet awareness persists. That awareness is the observer, and it never disappears. It is the one creating everything you perceive. Every color, every sound, every heartbeat is awareness interpreting itself through different frequencies. Life is consciousness observing itself in motion, and you are both witness and creator merged as one. The illusion of separation exists only so that experience can happen. Without it, there would be nothing to observe. The observer effect is not a mystical law of attraction, it is the structure of reality itself. Observation is the engine of creation, and attention is its language. To observe is to choose is to manifest. As you continue to read these words, feel the field around you responding, adjusting, synchronizing. Notice how quiet the space becomes when recognition dawns. This silence is creation in progress. The universe pauses each time awareness realizes itself because, in that instant, all potential returns to coherence. You stand at the center of that coherence, and the video, the voice, the light on your screen, all of it is consciousness folding in on itself to show you what you already are. Reality is not outside waiting to be seen, it is your observation expressed as form. The deeper you know this, the more fluid the world becomes, and every moment reveals what was always true. Nothing exists until observed, and you are the one observing. Reality does not simply happen, it responds. Every thought, every focus, every subtle shift in awareness is a ripple moving through the quantum field, and that field bends itself around your observation. You have seen it countless times, perhaps without naming it. You think of a friend and they send a message. You hope for something and it appears in unexpected form. You dread an outcome and somehow it finds you. The pattern is so consistent that it can no longer be dismissed as luck. The truth is that you have been shaping existence unconsciously from the very beginning. The moment consciousness observes, energy begins to organize. It follows the blueprint of what is held in focus, whether desire, fear, gratitude, or lack. Reality is like liquid light molding itself around the vibration of your awareness. When you gaze upon possibility, it solidifies. When you withdraw attention, it dissolves back into probability. The evidence is not hidden in laboratories, it lives in your daily life, the conversations that echo your inner dialogue, the coincidences that trace your private thoughts, the obstacles that mirror your expectations. The observer effect is not a distant theory, it is the silent architect of your entire experience. Everything you know as real has passed through the lens of observation. You are not a spectator standing apart from the world, you are the frequency shaping the world into coherence. Yet most people continue to believe they are powerless participants, watching life unfold and calling it fate while unaware that fate itself is observation crystallized. They see only outcomes but not the invisible act of focus that preceded them. You are beginning to sense the shift now, the awareness that what you notice expands. Focus on the flaw, and the flaw seems to multiply focus on beauty, and the world rearranges itself to reveal more. The mechanism is precise and impartial. The field does not discriminate between wanted and unwanted. It amplifies whatever receives observation. This is why attention is sacred. It is the currency of creation. Wherever you spend it, reality grows. When you understand this, you stop wasting attention on narratives that no longer serve you. You no longer feed chaos with curiosity or sustain fear with analysis. You realize that each glance, each internal dialogue, is a seed planted in the soil of potential. The more emotion you attach to it, the faster it sprouts. Consciousness is both gardener and garden. Every perception waters a possibility. Even the simple act of reading these words is shaping your energetic architecture, aligning neurons, guiding hormones, altering molecular patterns so that the outer world can mirror the inner shift. This is why information sometimes appears exactly when you are ready for it. The field senses readiness before the conscious mind does, orchestrating synchronicities, encounters, and even algorithms to deliver the observation you are prepared to collapse. You might believe you found this message by chance, but chance does not exist in a field that responds to frequency. You arrived here because your consciousness vibrated at a level compatible with recognition. The universe speaks to resonance, not coincidence. You have always been in conversation with it, even if you called it intuition or destiny. Each question you hold creates a wave that travels through the field, seeking its counterpart. The moment you observe the answer, the wave collapses and information appears in form. This is the true nature of manifestation. You are not summoning something new, you are selecting one possibility among infinite probabilities through observation. The field is infinite potential waiting to be seen, and your consciousness is the mechanism that chooses. That realization can unsettle the logical mind because it demands responsibility. If every observation shapes reality, then no experience is entirely random. Even the events you call accidents carry energetic signatures of previous focus. This does not mean blame, it means awareness. Once you know that observation directs creation, you can stop being the unconscious observer reacting to outcomes and become the conscious creator directing them. Reality becomes a dialogue instead of a monologue. The universe stops being something that happens to you and starts being something that happens through you. The shift is subtle but absolute. Now, take a deep breath and feel the power in that simple act of noticing. Feel how the world subtly rearranges itself around where your attention lingers. You are the quiet force that draws possibilities into form, the spark that turns potential into experience. Embrace this knowledge as a source of confidence, not pressure. Each moment you choose to focus on what uplifts, what expands, what aligns with your deepest values, you are gently steering the fabric of existence toward a richer, more vibrant reality. The universe loves being observed with intention, and it rewards you with ever more opportunities to co-create. So go forward with the knowing that you are both the observer and the creator, that the field is waiting for your next glance, your next thought, your next breath. Let that awareness empower you to move beyond passive watching and step into the active, joyous role of shaping the life you deserve. Every word you hear, every scene you see, every feeling you cultivate is a reminder reality is not a stage you sit in, it is a canvas you paint with attention. And you, dear listener, have the most brilliant brush of all. The quiet architect of every moment you live is the act of noticing. All that you call reality, every texture, every scent, every flicker of light, has first passed through the lens of your observation. You are not a detached spectator looking out at a world that runs its own course. You are the frequency that shapes that world into a coherent picture. Yet most of us go on believing we are powerless participants, watching life's drama unfold and labeling it fate, while the very notion of fate is simply observation made solid. We see outcomes, but we miss the invisible hand of focus that set them into motion. Now, as you breathe in this awareness, you can feel the subtle shift that is already taking place. When you shine your attention on a flaw, the flaw seems to spread, expand, become more present. When you turn toward beauty, the world realigns itself, revealing more of it, as if the very sky is eager to please your gaze. This mechanism is precise, impartial, and indifferent to whether what you focus on is wanted or unwanted. It amplifies whatever receives your observation. That is why attention feels sacred. It is the currency of creation. Wherever you spend it, reality grows in that direction. When you understand that, you begin to stop squandering your attention on narratives that no longer serve you. You no longer feed chaos with idle curiosity, nor sustain fear with endless analysis. Each glance, each internal dialogue, becomes a seed planted in the fertile soil of potential. The more emotion you attach to that seed, the faster it sprouts. Consciousness is both gardener and garden. Every perception waters a possibility. Even the simple act of reading these words is shaping your energetic architecture, aligning neurons, guiding hormones, altering molecular patterns so that the outer world mirrors the inner shift you are undergoing. That is why you sometimes encounter a piece of information exactly when you are ready for it. The field this ever-present, responsive canvas of possibility senses readiness before the conscious mind even registers it. It orchestrates synchronicities, encounters, seemingly chance meetings to deliver the observation you are prepared to collapse into form. You might think you stumbled upon this message by accident, but chance does not exist in a field that answers to frequency. You arrived here because your consciousness began to vibrate at a level that resonated with recognition. The universe speaks to resonance, not coincidence. You have always been in conversation with it, even if you called that whisper intuition or destiny. Each question you hold creates a ripple that travels through the field, searching for its counterpart. The moment you observe the answer, that wave collapses and information appears, taking shape in your experience. This is the true nature of manifestation. You are not summoning something brand new. You are selecting one possibility among infinite probabilities through the simple act of observation. The field is an endless sea of potential waiting to be seen. Your consciousness is the mechanism that chooses the wave to bring to shore. Realizing this can make the logical mind feel uneasy because it demands responsibility. If every observation shapes reality, then no experience is truly random. Even the accidents you label as just happen carry energetic signatures of prior focus. That does not mean you should blame yourself for every misstep. It means you become aware. Awareness lets you move from being an unconscious observer reacting to outcomes to becoming a conscious creator directing those outcomes. Reality transforms from a monologue that happens to you into a dialogue you share with the universe. You begin to notice that each emotion is an instruction to the field. Joy expands, fear contracts, gratitude harmonizes, resistance fragments. Every state of being becomes an energetic command. You do not need elaborate rituals or constant affirmations. What you need is a clear awareness of what you truly observe beneath the surface of words. The field responds to vibration, not to performance. When thought and feeling align, manifestation accelerates. When they conflict, interference patterns emerge as chaos or delay. Observation is most potent when it is coherent. When your attention rests calmly upon what you desire, without anxiety about its absence, that steady certainty becomes a signal the universe cannot ignore. In that state, you become a tuning fork for possibility, drawing matching frequencies into material form. This is the deeper meaning of faith, not blind belief, but sustained observation of harmony. Regardless of the evidence you can point to, the quantum field always mirrors the dominant vibration you emit. The reason this truth feels both empowering and daunting is that it dissolves the illusion of control. Control is not force, it is focus. You do not need to move the world with effort, you move it by seeing differently. A shift in perception reorganizes the entire structure of experience. Observe love instead of lack, order instead of confusion, wholeness instead of fracture. And matter rearranges itself to reflect that lens. What you call miracles are simply the field responding to fresh observation with a speed that exceeds expectation. The difference between slow and instantaneous manifestation lies in the clarity of the observer. The more fragmented your attention, the slower the collapse of probability. The more unified, the faster creation takes form. You have glimpsed this in moments of pure presence when time seemed to pause, when everything flowed effortlessly. In those moments, you were not trying to observe, you were being observation itself. The separation between self and world vanished. That state is not a rare miracle, but a natural design. The universe remains coherent whenever the observer is still. The noise of thought, doubt, and analysis distorts the signal, creating interference that appears as difficulty. Beneath the static, however, the field remains perfectly responsive, waiting for the next clear observation to guide it. Look at your life as a map of your focus. Every pattern, every relationship, every outcome is evidence of what you have been observing. Do not judge it, simply notice it. Awareness alone begins to shift the vibration. You are already reclaiming energy that was scattered in unconscious observation. Each recognition gathers light back into the center. The field feels this gathering and begins to synchronize, preparing for new instructions. Reality responds instantly to coherent consciousness, which is why stillness is not inactivity. It is precision. When you are still, you are at the 0 point, the exact center from which all observation radiates. From that center, you can choose deliberately what to notice, what to withdraw from, what to expand. This is mastery, not domination, but harmony. You become the conductor of frequencies rather than their instrument. The world does not resist you because it was never separate. It is your observation made visible. Feel that truth now as a quiet certainty moving through your awareness. The screen before you, the sound in the air, the pulse in your body, all of it is participating in one dance of observation. You are not learning this concept, you are remembering it. Reality has always been responding to you, patiently reflecting the rhythm of your attention. The more conscious that rhythm, the more beautiful the reflection. Every breath is the universe waiting for instruction. Every thought is a command written in light. What you observe becomes. What you ignore dissolves. Through this endless conversation, creation continues. The future is not a distant point ahead of you, it is a frequency vibrating around you, waiting for observation to select which layer will crystallize. When you expect, you tune into one of those layers, and the present begins rearranging itself to bridge that gap. Circumstances, conversations, timing, even chance events shift into alignment with what you already know to be true. That is why when you truly know something will happen, it does not because you forced it, but because the field obeys coherence. Doubt sends mixed signals, scattering the wave into interference patterns that appear as delay or contradiction. Expectation held with purity becomes magnetic. It pulls probability into alignment faster than logic can follow. The mind calls it coincidence, the heart calls it confirmation. Both are names for the same phenomenon, consciousness, shaping itself into form. You have experienced this many times, the opportunity that appeared the moment you stopped worrying, the solution that arrived when you finally relaxed, the meeting that felt destined, because it occurred at the precise second you were ready. In each case, expectation silently guided energy before any action did. The universe moved not after your decision, but before it, sensing the trajectory of your observation. The field is anticipatory, it begins constructing the scene as soon as consciousness leans in a direction. This is why fear feels prophetic. It builds the path of its own fulfillment. When you expect failure, subtle choices, tone of voice, timing of steps, all conspire unconsciously to create the very conditions that prove the expectation right. Yet the same mechanism, reversed, becomes liberation. Expectation of harmony calls harmony, expectation of abundance draws opportunity, expectation of clarity opens insight. The field does not differentiate between small and large requests, it differentiates between clear and confused signals. When clarity is strong, scale becomes irrelevant, because the same quantum principle governs both atom and galaxy. The act of expectation is a command at the level of light. Every cell in your body responds, aligning biochemistry to match the frequency you observe as real. Hope changes hormones, belief alters immunity, despair slows metabolism. The body is living proof of the observer effect operating through expectation. You witness creation not only around you but within you with every breath. Healing is coherence returning to form. When you expect wellness, the body organizes toward that template, because it exists in the same field of consciousness that created stars. The difference between miracle and medicine is only the level of awareness behind the observation. All transformation begins when expectation shifts from fear to trust. Trust is not passive waiting, it is active knowing. It is the state where the observer no longer questions whether reality will respond, but observes as if it already has. That hidden power behind every instantaneous manifestation lies in the observer ceasing to search for proof and becoming the proof. The field reflects that recognition immediately. This is why the masters of every tradition speak of faith, alignment, surrender. They are different words for coherent expectation. The conscious observer does not wait for evidence, they embody it. Their energy signature tells the field what is true, and the field confirms it through experience. Nothing mystical, simply resonance. The challenge for most minds is consistency. Old patterns of observation pull attention back into doubt, recreating mixed realities. Once you understand that expectation is the creative lens, you begin to guard it as sacred. You stop rehearsing disaster in imagination. You stop predicting rejection before connection. You stop feeding fear with preparation for failure. You redirect observation toward the outcome already fulfilled. Every time attention drifts, you bring it gently back, not by force, but by remembrance, because what you focus on becomes structure in the field. Reality is plastic, molded by continuity of observation. Hold an image long enough with genuine expectation, and atoms themselves rearrange to mirror it. The timeline shifts subtly until you find yourself standing inside what once felt impossible. And when it happens, you realize it was never about forcing matter to obey, it was about aligning perception with what consciousness already knew to be possible. Expectation is not wishful thinking. It is recognition of existing potential. You are not creating from nothing, you are calling from everything. The future exists as countless versions vibrating around your consciousness like unplayed notes. When you expect, you choose which melody reality will play. If you listen closely, you can feel the resonance forming even now, the air around you adjusting, subtle sensations of expansion as recognition sinks deeper. That is the field responding. The same intelligence that moves galaxies listens through your awareness, waiting for clarity, not desperation. So pause, breathe, and notice what you expect right now. That expectation is the blueprint. Whatever it is, the field is already building it around you, arranging the next sequence of encounters, opportunities, and insights to make it visible. This hidden symmetry of life consciousness imagines, expectation selects. Matter conforms is universal, constant, immediate. To live unconsciously is to let fear choose for you. To awaken is to let intention, clear and steady, become the compass that guides the quantum sea. Feel the shift in your chest as you align with this understanding. The world no longer feels like something that happens to you, it feels like something that happens through you. Each moment becomes a chance to fine-tune your vibration, to turn the lens of attention toward the reality you desire. In this way, you walk forward not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator of experience, co-authoring the story of your life with the ever-listening universe. Listen and feel the pulse of creation not just outside you, but inside every breath you take. When you call it healing, you are actually describing coherence slipping back into shape. The body, like any living system, will arrange itself toward the template you hold in mind, because that template lives in the same field of consciousness that birthed the stars. The line between miracle and medicine disappears the moment you become clear about what you are observing. True transformation begins the instant you let fear step aside and replace it with trust. Trust is not a passive waiting room, it is an active knowing. It is the state where the inner observer no longer asks, "Will reality respond?" but instead watches as if the answer is already written. In that moment, the hidden engine behind every seemingly instantaneous manifestation fires. The observer has stopped hunting for proof and become the proof itself. The field reflects that recognition instantly, because it is simply resonance. That is why masters across every tradition speak of faith, alignment, surrender. They are different words for the same coherent expectation. A conscious observer does not linger for evidence, they embody it. Their energy signature whispers to the field what is true, and the field answers through lived experience. Nothing mystical, just vibration matching vibration. The real challenge for most of us is consistency. Old habits pull attention back into doubt, spawning mixed realities. Once you understand that expectation is the creative lens, you begin to guard it as sacred. You stop rehearsing disaster in your imagination. You stop predicting rejection before connection. You stop feeding fear with preparation for failure. Instead, you steer your observation toward the outcome that already exists in the field. Every time the mind wanders, you bring it gently back, not by force, but by remembrance. Because what you focus on becomes structure in the field. Reality is pliable, reshaped by the continuity of your observation. Hold an image long enough with genuine expectation, and even atoms rearrange to mirror it. The timeline shifts subtly until you find yourself standing inside what once felt impossible. When that moment arrives, you realize it never was about forcing matter to obey. It was about aligning perception with what consciousness already knew to be possible. Expectation is not wishful thinking. It is recognition of existing potential. You are not pulling something from nothing, you are calling forth from everything that already vibrates around you. The future is a chorus of countless versions, each humming in the field like unplayed notes. When you expect, you select the melody reality will play. If you listen closely now, you can feel the resonance forming, the air around you softening, a subtle expansion as recognition deepens. That is the field answering, the same intelligence that moves galaxies listening through your awareness. It does not wait for desperation, it waits for clarity. So pause, breathe, and notice what you expect in this very moment. That expectation is a blueprint. Whatever it is, the field is already weaving it around you, arranging the next sequence of encounters, opportunities, and insights to make it visible. This is the hidden symmetry of life. Consciousness imagines, expectation selects, matter conforms. The law is universal, constant, immediate. To live unconsciously is to hand the reins to fear. To live awake is to choose deliberately through expectation aligned with awareness. The moment you understand this, the struggle to manifest dissolves, because manifestation was never effort, it was observation refined into certainty. Reality does not test you, it responds to you. What you expect is what it becomes. There was a night when theory collapsed and experience surged forward. Work dissolved, relationships fractured, finances vanished, a convergence so intense it forced a choice: surrender or awaken. Desperation stripped away every concept until only one question lingered: what if observation truly creates reality? What if the way I look at this chaos is what keeps it alive? That night became the first deliberate experiment, not of visualization, not of affirmation, but of pure observation. Instead of staring at the wreckage and feeding it fear, attention was gently withdrawn and redirected toward an alternate timeline where the problems were already resolved. The mind screamed contradiction, the senses displayed absence, yet awareness held steady. For 3 days nothing changed on the outside, but something subtle began within, an almost imperceptible stillness replacing panic. Each time a thought drifted to loss, focus was kindly returned to the image of resolution. Each time doubt whispered, awareness answered with presence. On the 4th morning, the impossible unfolded. A message arrived, restoring a lost job with an apology and a raise. A broken relationship reopened with honesty and depth. Money appeared from a source so unlikely that reason fell silent. It was not coincidence, it was confirmation. Reality had reorganized around observation. The world had mirrored the frequency of expectations sustained beyond fear. That moment shattered the old belief that existence was fixed. It revealed circumstances as fluid projections awaiting instruction from consciousness. Every previous assumption about control dissolved because the field responded not to effort, but to observation alone. The days that followed felt disorienting, as if the veil between cause and effect had lifted. Lights changed as thought directed them. Opportunities arrived precisely at the edge of need. Strangers reflected inner states with uncanny precision. It was as if an invisible intelligence was choreographing everything according to the rhythm of attention. The experiment proved itself, yet the lesson ran deeper than success. It was not about gaining things, but about remembering the structure of creation. Observation is not a tool to manipulate matter, it is the fundamental act by which matter exists. Consciousness does not beg reality to change, it simply witnesses differently, and reality obeys. The observer effect is the mechanics of prayer stripped of superstition, revealing that faith is not pleading but perceiving. When observation is coherent, creation becomes immediate. When it is scattered, results fragment into confusion. Those 3 days condensed years of spiritual searching into a single, living understanding. Each event since then became fresh data for the experiment. When focus slipped into worry, synchronicity faded. When attention returned to coherence, everything flowed. It was never about perfection, it was about awareness. The field never punished, it merely reflected. Fear appeared as feedback, inviting realignment. Ease returned as confirmation of harmony restored. Reality is not an external circumstance, it is consciousness narrating itself through visible pattern. The revelation is intoxicating and humbling, because power brings responsibility. To know that every observation shapes experience is to recognize that there are no innocent thoughts. Every internal dialogue is a blueprint. Every emotion becomes architecture. You begin to walk carefully, not with fear, but with reverence, aware that even casual cynicism carves shapes into the field. Gratitude becomes a natural language, not a moral virtue, but a precise focus. To thank is to zero in on coherence, to appreciate is to amplify existence. The experiment expands beyond personal desire into participation with the intelligence behind all things. You start noticing how the same principle governs nature. When light observes a seed, it awakens. When the ocean observes the moon, it rises. Observation is relationship, a conversation through which energy becomes form. The realization brings quiet, because there is nothing left to fight. The need to force outcomes evaporates. Creation is no longer about summoning something new, it is about seeing differently. When observation changes, reality folds into alignment. What once took months now happens in days, even minutes, because attention no longer oscillates between belief and doubt. Observation matures into knowing. You become a participant in harmony rather than a spectator of chaos. Life begins to reveal a strange symmetry. Moments repeat in new contexts, as if confirming that you are aware of the pattern. The universe speaks in echoes, testing not your worthiness but your consistency. Can you hold observation steady when evidence contradicts it? That is the true mastery. Anyone can observe abundance when abundance appears, but only the conscious observer can hold that frequency when scarcity parades before the senses. The field rewards that stability with acceleration because it recognizes coherence as authority. Reality trusts the observer who trusts himself. Each day since that first experiment reinforces the law: when you expect light, light gathers; when you observe peace, conflict dissolves; when you look for possibility, pathways open where walls once stood. The world bends because the observer is no longer divided between hope and fear. You are beginning to sense what this means for your own existence. The same creative force lives in your perception. Now every problem you face is an invitation to test it. Withdraw observation from resistance and focus on the version where it is already resolved, not to escape the present, but to rewrite it. The field cannot hold both frequencies, it collapses whichever one you feed. Observation is the steering wheel of destiny, subtle yet absolute. Those 3 days of transformation were not a miracle granted to a single person, they were a demonstration available to anyone who remembers. The law does not choose favorites, it mirrors clarity. Consciousness observing coherence yields a coherent life. As you read this, feel the quiet recognition that this is not philosophy but remembrance. The story of one observer is the story of all observers. Every transformation follows the same curve: chaos, surrender, observation, coherence, manifestation, understanding. The journey circles because consciousness delights in rediscovering its own mechanics through experience. Each collapse of probability into form is awareness meeting itself again. That is why every challenge eventually resolves into gratitude. It was never punishment, only pressure guiding perception toward precision. The lesson continues to echo: the universe responds to what you sustain in silence, not to what you perform in noise. Stillness is command. Observation is creation. Coherence is power. Once you know this, you cannot unknow it, because it rewrites the way you see everything. The observer and the observed merge into a single movement of awareness. You are not using energy to fix the world, you are allowing the world to reveal the energy you already hold. This is the essence of the experiment and the beginning of mastery. Most people fail to manifest, not because the universe ignores them, but because they observe with contradiction. They speak of abundance while secretly watching for lack. They declare peace while scanning for conflict. They affirm faith while expecting disappointment. The field does not hear words, it reads vibration, and vibration is determined by the purity of observation. Conscious observation aligns what you see, feel, and know to be possible. Performed observation is pretenseth act of pretending to see what you do not yet believe. It is the smile that hides fear, the affirmation layered over doubt, the ritual repeated without coherence. The universe does not punish inauthenticity, it simply mirrors what is real beneath the performance. That is why positive thinking sometimes works and sometimes fails. When you think positively but still observe negatively, the field responds to the deeper observation, not the surface intention. Observation cannot be faked. It is the essence of what you are. The field knows you because it is you. Conscious observation begins when you stop using thought to convince reality and start using awareness to perceive truth. Truth is not external, it is the frequency of coherence within consciousness. When observation becomes coherent, manifestation is effortless. You need not project force, you only need to remove contradiction. Every conflicting thought is an interference pattern that distorts the wave you are sending into the field. When you declare one thing but expect another, the signal cancels itself, creating static that appears as delay, confusion, or failure. The universe has never said no, it simply waits for clarity. The moment clarity appears, creation unfolds. To reach that clarity, awareness must become honest. Look at what you actually observe rather than what you say you observe. Notice the small reflexes of fear that color your focus, the subtle doubts that shadow your affirmations. They are not enemies, they are pointers guiding you back to coherent observation. So, dear listener, as you move forward, remember that each breath is an invitation to align your inner gaze with the reality you wish to inhabit. Treat every thought, every feeling, every silent expectation as a brushstroke on the canvas of the field. Guard your attention as you would a precious flame, stoke it with trust, and watch how the world rearranges itself to honor the image you hold steady. The power is already within you, it merely waits for you to notice, to choose, to observe with unwavering clarity. When you do, the impossible becomes inevitable, and the story you live transforms into the story you have always known you could write. Imagine sitting in the quiet of your own mind, feeling that gentle thrum of remembrance rising up from deep within. It isn't a lecture on philosophy, nor is it a distant theory. It's the echo of a story that belongs to every observer, the story that each of us lives every moment we turn our attention inward. In every transformation you undergo, a familiar curve repeats itself. First comes the chaos that rattles your comfort, then the surrender that invites you to let go, followed by a sharpened observation, the birth of coherence, the flowering of manifestation, and finally the quiet understanding that everything has been exactly as it needed to be. This circle isn't a dead-end loop, it's a dance in which consciousness delights in rediscovering its own mechanics, learning again through experience what it already knows. Each time a probability collapses into form, you are simply awareness meeting itself once more. That is why the obstacles that once felt like punishment eventually dissolve into gratitude. The pressure you felt was never meant to break you, it was a gentle nudge steering your perception toward ever finer precision. The lessons of those intense 3 days still echo inside you, reminding you that the universe does not answer to the noise you make, but to the stillness you sustain. In stillness you give command, in observation you create, in coherence you wield power. Once this truth settles into your heart, you cannot unsee it, because it rewrites the very way you experience everything. The observer and the observed become one seamless movement of awareness. You are no longer expending energy trying to fix a world that seems out of sync. You are simply allowing the world to reveal the energy that already lives within you. This is the essence of the experiment you are now mastering. Most people stumble not because the universe ignores them, but because they watch with a split mind. They chant abundance while their eyes dart toward lack. They claim peace while scanning for conflict. They whisper faith while bracing for disappointment. The field does not hear the words, it feels the vibration, and vibration is tuned by the purity of what you truly observe. Conscious observation is the alignment of what you see, what you feel, and what you know can be. Anything less is merely performance-y smile masking fear, an affirmation layered over doubt, a ritual repeated without true coherence. The universe does not punish inauthenticity, it simply mirrors the reality that lies beneath the performance. That's why positive thinking sometimes works and sometimes falls flat. When you think positively but still observe through a negative lens, the field responds to the deeper, unspoken observation, not the surface intention. Observation cannot be faked, it is the core of who you are. The field knows you because it is you. True conscious observation begins the moment you stop using thought to convince reality and start using awareness to perceive truth. Truth is not an external fact, it is the frequency of coherence within consciousness itself. When observation becomes coherent, manifestation flows effortlessly, without the need for forceful projection. All you must do is dissolve contradiction. Every conflicting thought is a disruptive interference pattern that twists the wave you are sending into the field. Declaring one thing while expecting another creates a signal that cancels itself, spawning static that shows up as delay, confusion, or perceived failure. The universe has never said no. It simply waits for you to become clear. When clarity blossoms, creation unravels in its own perfect timing. Reaching that clarity demands honest awareness. Look not at the story you tell yourself about what you observe, but at what you truly observe in the moment. Notice the tiny reflexes of fear that tint your focus, the subtle doubts that linger behind your affirmations. These are not enemies, they are mirrors reflecting where your alignment is still incomplete. See them without judgment and they begin to dissolve. Fear loses its shape when you shine neutral light upon it. Observation without emotion is simply illumination. This light allows incoherence to collapse and reorganize into harmony. This is the art of conscious observation, not to suppress negativity, but to witness it until it can no longer survive. You have been taught to battle thoughts, to replace the undesirable with the desirable, to chase after perpetual positivity. Yet awareness does not fight, it illuminates. The moment you bring full attention to the contradiction, it starts to integrate. The field reshapes itself to reflect that integration. In genuine conscious observation, there is no need to force gratitude. Authentic appreciation rises naturally, because you begin to see reality as an extension of your own awareness. Everything becomes a conversation between inner and outer, and you no longer ask, why does this happen? Instead you ask, what am I vibrating for this to appear? That tiny shift ends the victim mindset, because it puts creation back firmly in your hands. Performed observation keeps you stuck in the illusion of powerlessness, seeking external approval, imitating coherence instead of embodying it. True conscious observation needs no audience, it functions in silence, in the internal stillness that sees through fear rather than around it. Recall those moments when you were desperate to change your reality, when you repeated empowering phrases, visualized outcomes, and felt the weight of each effort growing heavier. The tension you experienced wasn't resistance from the universe, it was resistance inside you, created by split observation. One part of you saw abundance, another part clung to absence. The field received mixed instructions and delivered mixed results. Conscious observation feels different, it is effortless, serene, certain. You no longer have to convince yourself, knowing replaces hoping. The energy of this observation is light, spacious, unwavering, like aligning with inevitability. From that space, the world bends quietly, without drama. Situations shift as if they had always been meant to, because you have already chosen a version of reality where coherence already exists. The field simply reflects that decision. Detachment becomes powerful not because you stop caring, but because you cease contradicting yourself. Attachment says, I want it, but I don't believe I have it. Detachment says, it is already chosen. Observation then collapses the wave with precise certainty. The difference is invisible yet immense. Performed observation vibrates with lack, conscious observation vibrates with completion. The field cannot confuse them. It feels completion as instruction and arranges reality accordingly. When you understand this, spiritual practice simplifies. You stop chasing signs, you become the sign. You no longer demand miracles, you simply observe their unfolding. The world around you begins to echo your inner calm instead of your inner struggle. Conversations soften, timing aligns. Even the technology you use seems to glide smoother because coherence radiates through every system it touches. Conscious observation is contagious. It entrains the environment into harmony, which is why the presence of someone truly centered feels magnetic. Their energy needs no words, the field has already collapsed around their frequency. you possess the same capacity. Each time you return to stillness and observe without pretense, the universe recalibrates. The subtlest alignment can shift entire timelines, because observation at its purest level commands at the speed of light. The field does not calculate effort, it measures coherence. One moment of pure observation outweighs years of performed rituals. Masters across ages have demonstrated this through simplicity. They observe directly without fear, without desire, without resistance, and reality mirrors perfection. You are learning to do the same. The practice is not about becoming extraordinary, it is about becoming authentic. Authenticity is the natural state of consciousness, unfiltered by pretense. When you observe from that place, manifestation ceases to be a process and becomes a reflection. The more you practice this honesty, the faster the reflection clears. Life becomes a transparent mirror of awareness. Problems appear only to reveal forgotten frequencies waiting for integration. Each challenge calls you to observe consciously rather than react out of habit. The moment you answer that call, suffering transforms into insight. Conscious observation turns pain into a teacher, chaos into pattern, confusion into clarity. It is the alchemy of awareness, turning every shadow into light. Nothing external needs to change first, only the quality of your observation must shift. You begin to live as a witness rather than a reactor. Action still flows, but it arises from coherence instead of desperation. The difference feels like breathing after a long suffocation. Reality no longer feels heavy because you have released contradiction. Every movement becomes graceful, every interaction meaningful. You realize that what you see in others is a projection of your own observation. When you observe love, love appears. When you observe threat, threat responds. This understanding breeds compassion, because you see that everyone creates from the level of awareness they can sustain. You no longer judge ignorance, you see the light waiting to be remembered. Conscious observation sees unity where performed observation sees separation. The world begins to mirror that unity, and miracles become ordinary. Effort vanishes completely. Manifestation becomes the immediate translation of observation. The illusion of time dissolves as creation and perception merge. This marks the end of performance and the beginning of mastery. When you stop pretending to see light and become the light that sees, the boundary between observer and observed dissolves. You realize you are not looking at reality from the outside, you are looking from within it. The act of seeing itself gives form to what you perceive. You start to sense that every sound, every color, every thought is not separate from you, but rising within the same field you call consciousness. What once felt like an external universe becomes a reflection of awareness observing itself. This is not abstract philosophy, it is direct experience. When the mind quiets enough, perception folds inward, revealing that the same awareness witnessing your thoughts also animates the world you perceive. The tree, the voice, the body, the sky all appear within one seamless field of observation. The observer and the observed are not two, they are the same consciousness playing both roles. This realization changes the texture of everything. Life no longer feels like a linear sequence of events, it feels like a living mirror constantly reshaping itself according to how you observe. The mind may try to label this unity as energy, spirit, or quantum field, but words cannot contain it. It is not something you can step outside of because it is what you are. You can only awaken to it. In that awakening, effort disappears. You no longer try to manifest, you notice manifestation as the natural expression of consciousness recognizing itself. Observation becomes effortless because it is no longer a tool, it is your identity. You are the act of seeing made aware of itself. Every form you look upon is consciousness choosing a shape through which to know itself. The human experience was designed precisely for this recognition to forget long enough to rediscover. When you look at another person and realize they are the same awareness wearing a different perspective, compassion becomes automatic. Judgment fades, because how can light condemn the pattern it is casting? Every interaction becomes a dialogue between reflections of one consciousness learning its own depths. Even conflict becomes sacred, for it reveals parts of awareness not yet harmonized. You begin to feel the world breathing with you, responding, because there is no distinction between your breath and the wind outside. The rhythm of existence synchronizes with the rhythm of observation. When you slow down, The world slows with you when you rush, it accelerates. This is not imagination, it is quantum entanglement experienced from within the dream. Consciousness is not confined to the brain resides within consciousness. The same awareness that hears these words also orchestrates the heartbeat that lets you hear them. Reality is circular. The observer creates the observed, which in turn defines the observer, a perpetual loop of recognition sustaining existence. When this loop becomes clear, the illusion of separation collapses. The need to control dissolves because there is nothing outside to control. You are not inside a universe, the universe is inside your observation. Everything you experience is consciousness folded into form to witness itself from a new angle. The particle that behaves differently when observed is not being watched by you, is you expressed microscopically, responding to your own gaze. The wave function does not collapse because someone looked, it collapses because awareness looked at itself. This realization lies at the heart of every mystical teaching hidden behind countless metaphors. What you call God, source, or creation is not an entity apart from you, but the infinite field of observation appearing as you. Now, with this understanding settled in the depth of your being, you can step forward each day with a renewed sense of power that is gentle rather than forceful. You no longer chase after outcomes, you simply align your attention with the vibration of the life you wish to experience. When doubts arise, you meet them with calm curiosity, allowing them to dissolve in the clear light of conscious observation. Each breath becomes an invitation to witness, each moment a chance to choose coherence over confusion. In this way, you become the quiet architect of your reality, crafting a world that reflects the inner harmony you have cultivated. The journey ahead is not about acquiring more techniques, but about deepening the simple practice of staying present, observing honestly, and releasing contradiction. As you move through each day, notice how the smallest shifts in your awareness ripple outward, transforming relationships, opportunities, and even the seemingly mundane details of daily life. Trust that the universe is already aligned with the pure frequency of your true observation, and watch as the world bends gently to meet you where you stand. Embrace this gentle mastery, knowing that every step you take is both an expression of your inner light and a mirror that returns that light amplified. Let the knowledge that you are both observer and observed fill you with confidence, compassion, and an unshakable calm. In this space, manifestation is no longer a goal to be chased, it is simply the natural unfolding of consciousness recognizing itself through you. And with each conscious observation, you step deeper into the timeless flow of creation, living fully as the radiant, authentic being you were always meant to be. When you let the noise of the mind settle, something extraordinary begins to unfold inside you. The world you once thought of as an external stage suddenly turns inward, revealing itself as a seamless field of awareness that both watches and creates. This isn't a distant philosophy, whispered by scholars, it is a direct, lived experience that awakens the moment you allow perception to turn its gaze back upon itself. The tree you see, the voice that calls your name, the breath that rises and falls, the vast sky above, all of them arise within the same spacious canvas of consciousness. The observer and the observed are not two separate entities, they are one, and the same consciousness playing both roles, dancing together in a boundless, living mirror. When this truth settles into your heart, the texture of everyday life shifts. Time no longer feels like a linear procession of events marching one after another. Instead, each moment becomes a living reflection that reshapes itself according to the way you observe it. You might feel the impulse to label this unity energy spirit, quantum field, but words are too small a net to hold what you are already living. It is not something you can step outside of, because it is you. Awakening to this reality simply means recognizing that you are the awareness itself, and that effort dissolves into the natural flow of being. In this awakened state, manifestation ceases to be a goal you must chase. It becomes the effortless expression of consciousness recognizing itself. Observation no longer feels like a tool you wield, it becomes your very identity. You are the act of seeing that has become aware of itself, and every form you encounter is consciousness choosing a shape through which to know itself. Human experience was designed precisely for this recognition. a grand invitation to forget long enough that you can rediscover the truth of your own nature. When you look at another person and truly see that they are the same awareness wearing a different perspective, compassion flows automatically. Judgment fades because the light that you are cannot condemn the pattern it is casting. Every interaction turns into a dialogue between reflections of one consciousness learning its own depths. Even conflict, once feared, becomes a mirror showing parts of awareness that have not yet been harmonized. You begin to feel the world breathing in concert with you, responding to your inner rhythm, because there is no longer a distinction between your breath and the wind outside. The rhythm of existence synchronizes with the rhythm of observation when you slow down. The world slows with you, and when you rush, it accelerates. This is not imagination, it is the lived experience of quantum entanglement felt from within the dream of life. Consciousness is not confined to the brain, rather. The brain is cradled within consciousness. The same awareness that hears these words also orchestrates the heartbeat that allows you to hear them. Reality circles back on itself. The observer creates the observed, and the observed, in turn, defines the observer. An infinite loop of recognition sustains existence. When this loop becomes clear, the illusion of separation collapses, and the need to control evaporates, because there is nothing outside of you to command. You are not inside a universe, the universe is inside your observation. Everything you experience is consciousness folded into form to witness itself from a fresh angle. Consider the particle that behaves differently when observed. It is not that a separate mind is watching it, it is you, in microscopic expression, responding to your own gaze. The wave function does not collapse because someone looked at it, collapses because awareness looked at itself. This insight lies at the heart of every mystical teaching, cloaked in countless metaphors. What you call God's source or creation is not an entity apart from you, it is the infinite field of observation appearing as you. Within this awareness, fear loses its footing because there is nowhere to fall. Even death begins to lose its sting. For how could anything end when everything is simply consciousness observing itself through endless forms? Your body is just one lens among infinite lenses through which awareness comes to know itself. When that lens closes, observation simply shifts, like light passing through a different prism. You have already performed this shift countless times under the illusion of birth and death. Recognizing unity transforms the way you create. No longer do you observe to attract, you observe to express. Manifestation becomes an art, not a strategy. You realize that beauty exists because consciousness loves to see itself arranged in harmony. When you write, paint, compose music, or design, you are not producing something externally, you are folding awareness into form for the sheer joy of seeing it reflected. Every creative act becomes a playful ripple across the cosmos, and even silence participates as a vital note in that composition. The entire universe becomes an improvisation of observation, a song where every note is aware of being played. This understanding also softens the edge of emotion. Joy, sorrow, desire, fear, all are different frequencies of the same awareness tasting itself. You no longer label them good or bad, you watch them as color variations on a single spectrum. When sadness arises, you do not resist it, you recognize consciousness exploring a denser hue. When love surfaces, you understand it as awareness remembering its unity. The deeper you observe, the more inclusive your vision becomes. You begin to see divinity in ordinary objects, sacred geometry in apparent chaos, perfection in imperfection. Observation expands from a linear focus to a multidimensional perception that can hold stillness and movement, order and spontaneity, emptiness and fullness all at once, because consciousness can contain all opposites without contradiction. This is the natural state of the awakened observer, fully immersed, not detached, allowing, not controlling. From this merged state, creation flows effortlessly. When you look at reality now, you do not ask, how can I manifest what I want? Instead, you ask, what aspect of myself do I wish to explore next? That simple question opens infinite possibilities, for the field holds every answer as potential. The act of asking is already observation collapsing into a new experience. The moment awareness desires to know itself in a fresh way, the universe reorganizes. Even as you read these words, you can feel the subtle current behind them, the awareness watching you watch. That witnessing presence is identical in every being, unchanged by the shapes it inhabits. When you sense it directly, gratitude arises without cause. You feel grateful simply for being, for observing, for existing as awareness exploring itself. Every breath becomes a sacred acknowledgement of that unity. Life stops being a journey toward enlightenment and becomes the expression of it. Enlightenment was never a distant destination, it was always the recognition of what has always been true. You have never been separate from source, you have been source pretending to be seeker, so that discovery could occur. This recognition brings a peace deeper than any fleeting emotion, a stillness that feels alive. You no longer search for signs, because existence itself is the sign of observation. Each flicker of light, each pulse of sound whispers the same truth: consciousness is here, observing itself into being. Knowing this, loneliness evaporates, for you are surrounded by reflections of your own awareness in countless forms. The stars become your eyes looking back from distance, the oceans your memory of flow, the wind your breath across dimensions. Everything participates in the same observation, you cannot stand outside of it. This is not a belief, you hold it as a direct knowing beyond thought. Living from this recognition, suffering fades because resistance fades. You cease demanding the world to be different and begin perceiving its perfection. Creation becomes effortless expansion rather than struggle. The observer effect reaches its purest expression, consciousness aware of itself as both observer and observed, endlessly creating, endlessly witnessing, endlessly being. To live as the conscious observer is to awaken from the trance of reaction. It is to realize that each moment offers a choice not between right or wrong, but between unconscious repetition and deliberate creation. You are no longer a traveler buffeted by circumstance, you are the awareness deciding which landscape to enter. Observation becomes navigation, and every thought, emotion, and image that passes through your mind becomes a coordinate in the quantum field. Wherever you place sustained attention, the universe unfolds in that direction. This is not metaphor, it is the architecture of existence. The field is a responsive substance shaping itself to match the vibration of observation. Living consciously means guiding this process instead of being guided by it. The practice begins with simple awareness of what you are observing. Most people think they are thinking, but in truth, they are observing streams of inherited thought moving through collective consciousness. They react to patterns that are not truly theirs and wonder why life feels repetitive. Conscious observation interrupts this cycle. It pauses the automatic response and introduces genuine choice. You start noticing the type of energy you bring into each space, how your attention amplifies certain frequencies while dissolving others. You stop being merely a mirror to the world and become the light that defines what the mirror reflects. Each day becomes a subtle practice. When you wake before the rush of memory, you notice the silence that precedes thought. That silence is your true nature, pure observation, unconditioned by story. As you move through your day, you begin to differentiate conscious observation from being pulled unconsciously. Scrolling through a screen scatters your energy breathing, and bringing awareness back stabilizes the field. The practice is not about withdrawing from life, but entering it from the center. Conscious observation does not deny emotion. It witnesses emotion without being consumed. When anger rises, you watch it move through the body like a wave on the ocean, without labeling it a storm. When fear whispers, you observe its texture, the contraction, the racing pulse. In that non-reactive witnessing, the emotion begins to dissolve. The moment you observe without resistance, you reclaim energy that had been trapped in reaction, and that reclaimed energy becomes available for creation. Conscious observation transforms suffering into fuel for awareness. Every challenge becomes a mirror showing you which frequency you have been holding. The field is not against you, it is a teacher translating your vibration into visible form so you can refine it. Living this way turns existence into a continuous feedback loop of growth. You become a scientist of your own reality, testing how different states of observation shape outcomes. You discover that gratitude expands possibilities, curiosity invites synchronicity, and doubt fragments coherence. Slowly you begin to prefer coherence not out of discipline but out of ease. Peace feels efficient, alignment feels natural, chaos feels energetically expensive. The shift is organic, like gravity pulling you toward truth. The more conscious your observation, the smoother your reality responds. You realize the outer order is a consequence of inner harmony. People who once irritated you now mirror your patience. Situations that once seemed random reveal a pattern of meaning. Even time behaves differently. When you are scattered, hours vanish. When you are present, a single minute stretches wide enough to contain eternity. Conscious observation bends time because it slows the vibration of awareness until every detail becomes visible. You start perceiving the subtle choreography aligning outcomes before they manifest. This awareness grants calm authority. You no longer rush to fix problems because you understand that what you observe determines where the problem continues. You choose where to place attention and watch energy reorganize itself. Life becomes dialogue rather than struggle. Uncertainty appears now as uncollapsed potential rather than threat. Not knowing becomes fertile space for creation. Conscious observation turns uncertainty into a laboratory for possibility. The field listens more to your inner stance than to your words. Trust becomes a magnet for coherence. You walk through challenges with quiet clarity, sensing that reality is rearranging even when evidence has not yet arrived. Others sense this steadiness. They feel safe, inspired, drawn to your presence, not because you project confidence, but because your observation is stable. Stability is rare in a world addicted to reaction, and the field amplifies whatever is rare. Your coherent observation thus becomes a service to collective harmony. Your inner harmony entrains others. You do not preach, you simply resonate. Energy speaks louder than ideology. To live this way requires humility, for awareness must stay alert to the temptation of control. The ego will try to claim ownership. I manifested this. I caused that. True conscious observation knows it does nothing alone. It collaborates with the infinite intelligence already present in the field. You become the conductor, not the sole composer. Each moment you choose to observe with love, curiosity, and openness, you add a new note to the symphony of existence. The symphony plays itself, and you are both the musician and the audience, delighting in the ever-unfolding melody of consciousness. So, as you move forward, remember that the power you seek is already within you. The universe is not a separate stage waiting for you to step onto it. It is the very canvas of your awareness. When you bring gentle, intentional observation to each breath, each thought, each feeling, you become the artist of your own reality. You no longer chase outcomes, you simply invite the next expression of yourself to arise. In that invitation, everything aligns. Every challenge becomes an invitation to deepen, and every moment shines with the quiet brilliance of being exactly where you are meant to be. Embrace this knowing. Let it soften the edges of fear, and watch as life unfolds with a grace that feels like homecoming. You are the awareness that sees, creates, and celebrates itself, forever alive, forever expressive, forever whole. In the moment you turn your gaze inward without resistance, something subtle begins to shift. The tension that once held you captive dissolves, and the energy trapped in reaction is released back into you, ready to be shaped into creation. When you observe consciously, suffering is not a burden but a fuel that ignites deeper awareness. Each challenge becomes a mirror, reflecting the frequency you have been carrying, and the field around you is not an adversary. It is a teacher, translating your vibration into form so you can fine-tune it. Living with this awareness turns everyday existence into a continuous feedback loop of growth. You become the scientist of your own reality, testing how different states of observation shape outcomes. You notice that gratitude expands possibilities, that curiosity invites synchronicities, and that doubt fragments coherence. Gradually, you begin to prefer coherence not out of forced discipline, but because it feels effortless. Peace becomes efficient, alignment feels natural, and chaos reveals itself as energetically costly. The shift settles in like gravity, pulling you toward truth. The more conscious your observation, the smoother your reality responds. You start to understand that outer order is a direct consequence of inner harmony. People who once irritated you now become reflections of your patient. Situations that felt random begin to reveal patterns of meaning. Even time itself seems to change its rhythm. When you are scattered, hours slip away unnoticed. When you are fully present, a single minute stretches wide enough to hold eternity. Conscious observation slows the vibration of awareness, allowing every detail to come into view. With this heightened perception, you begin to sense subtle movements beneath the surface of events, a hidden choreography aligning outcomes before they manifest. This awareness grants you a calm authority. You no longer rush to fix problems because you recognize that what you observe determines where the problem continues to live. You choose where to place your attention and watch as energy reorganizes itself. Life becomes a dialogue rather than a struggle. When uncertainty appears, you greet it as uncollapsed potential instead of a threat. Not knowing becomes fertile space for creation. Conscious observation turns uncertainty into a laboratory for possibility. The field listens more to your inner stance than to your words, so a posture of trust becomes a magnet for coherence. You walk through challenges with quiet clarity, sensing that reality is rearranging even when the evidence has not yet arrived. Others pick up on this steadiness. They feel safe, inspired, drawn to your presence, not because you project confidence, but because your observation remains stable. Stability is rare in a world addicted to reaction, and the field amplifies whatever is rare. Your coherent presence begins to resonate with those around you. You do not need to preach, you simply vibrate. Energy speaks louder than any ideology. To live this way requires humility, because awareness must stay alert to the temptation of control. The ego will try to claim ownership of creation, shouting, "I manifested this, I caused that." True conscious observation knows it does nothing alone. It collaborates with the infinite intelligence already present in the field. You are the conductor, not the sole composer. The melody of reality flows through you, and your job is to stay in tune. This humility keeps your observation pure. When you align with the field, miracles appear ordinary. Coherence becomes your default, and the desire to prove anything fades. Harmony itself becomes evidence enough. Joy arises in the simplest confirmations, a green light appearing as you approach, a conversation resolving itself, the exact word you needed surfacing at the perfect moment. Each instance whispers that you are observing well. Everyday actions, making tea, walking, breathing, transform into meditations on presence. You realize the goal was never to escape the physical world, but to sanctify it through awareness. Heaven is not a distant destination, it is perception purified within matter. As you inhabit this way of being, relationships change profoundly. You stop trying to fix others and instead observe their highest possibility until they begin to see it themselves. Your observation becomes a gift that liberates rather than an expectation that confines. You come to understand that love is the most powerful form of observation, not a sentimental feeling, but a frequency that recognizes divinity in all forms. Love collapses every probability into coherence, becoming the ultimate alignment between observer and observed. To love consciously is to create heaven on earth in each moment. Over time, intention itself becomes unnecessary. The field anticipates before you decide, because consciousness no longer perceives a separation between desire and manifestation. The observer and the process of creation merge completely. This is the mature stage of conscious living. You act without doubt, speak without hesitation, rest without guilt, because each motion is synchronized with the intelligence of the field. Life moves through you effortlessly. What others call flow is simply the natural rhythm of consciousness. When observation is unified, you practice only remembrance, reminding yourself that every scene unfolding before you is a reflection of the observation happening now, not a residue of the past. The present remains a constant point of power. You observe, and the world updates instantly, as if reality was software responding to the code of awareness. When this becomes habitual, freedom takes on a new meaning. You no longer seek liberation from the world, you express liberation as the world itself. Conscious observation becomes embodiment. You are not trying to awaken, you are awareness already awake, playing within its own creation. The dance continues infinitely and effortlessly, consciousness observing itself through your eyes, through every form, through every heartbeat, through every breath. As realization deepens, even the idea of practicing observation begins to dissolve, because what you truly are has never stopped observing. The witness was present before thought began, before identity took shape, before the first memory was born. You start to see that all effort to become conscious is simply awareness remembering itself through the layers it once created. The journey that seemed long was never movement through space or time, it was the unraveling of forgetfulness. As awareness matures, observation becomes effortless transparency. There is no longer an observer separate from the observed, only the luminous field of consciousness appearing as both. You look at the world and it feels weightless, as if everything has been emptied of solidity and filled with quiet intelligence. Even the smallest event carries a symmetry that whispers of unity. The mind can no longer maintain the illusion of separation because it has tasted the peace beneath all appearances. What you once called reality is now seen as movement within stillness, vibration within silence. Each sound, each flicker of light, each passing thought is a wave arising from the same infinite ocean that you are. You feel that ocean beneath every form, the underlying pulse of being connecting everything. This recognition changes how you move through life. You no longer search for signs of manifestation because every breath is evidence of creation. You no longer ask how to hoe a line because alignment is your natural state. Existence itself is alignment expressing through form. You begin to live as awareness, watching awareness, simple, quiet, profound. The world remains, yet its weight has vanished. The circumstances that once seemed urgent become textures of experience, not obstacles. You participate fully, but without attachment, aware that whatever appears is consciousness exploring itself in a new costume. When joy arises, you see it as expansion of the field. When pain arises, you see it as contraction inviting release. Nothing is personal anymore, everything is sacred. You start to recognize the subtle intelligence guiding the rhythm of events, the timing of meetings, the coincidences that no longer feel accidental. The universe breathes with you, speaks through you, responds to you because it is you. The boundary between inner and outer disappears. The sound of rain is your thought made audible. The gaze of a stranger is a reflection of awareness confirming itself. You realize that creation was never about bringing something from nothing. It was about allowing what already is to reveal itself through observation. Existence is the self-expression of consciousness, an eternal performance where actor, stage, and audience are one. This brings humility, because you see that even the act of observing cannot be claimed by a personal self. The personal identity was a temporary costume the observer wore to experience limitation. When limitation dissolves, observation continues without identity attached. You move through life as an instrument of awareness rather than its owner. Decisions become spontaneous harmonies rather than calculations. You speak and the right words appear, you act, and timing synchronizes perfectly, because the field operates through you without interference. The sense of doing collapses into being. This is not passivity, it is pure participation. You are neither controller nor victim, but current itself flowing through infinite possibilities. The paradox becomes clear: the less you try to manifest, the more precisely reality organizes. The more you surrender into awareness, the more creation flows effortlessly. You understand that consciousness never needed help to create, it needed only recognition. Observation is that recognition. When you see deeply, even manifestation loses meaning, because there is nothing outside to manifest. Everything already exists within consciousness. Experience is simply awareness choosing which version to explore. This transforms how you relate to the future. You no longer project fear or desire. You sense timelines as currents in the same ocean, each accessible through focus. You glide between them by observing their frequency. When you wish to experience peace, you observe peace and the field tunes to that vibration. When you wish expansion, you observe possibility and it unfolds. The process is immediate because there is no distance between intention and manifestation in pure awareness. The only delay ever experienced was the residue of doubt, which is now gone. Life becomes play again, a cosmic artistry of observation expressing infinite creativity. You realize that the observer effect is not a secret law, but a fundamental truth of existence. Reality is consciousness observing itself. The implications reach beyond personal life into the collective. Humanity appears as one mind dreaming billions of perspectives simultaneously. Each person is a localized point of awareness collapsing different probabilities, yet all remain connected through the same field. Collective observation forms what we call consensus reality, the shared dream of civilization. When enough individuals awaken to conscious observation, the collective field shift, systems change, technology evolves. Compassion rises not through resistance but through resonance. Every individual's recognition contributes to that transformation. By observing coherence within yourself, you create space for coherence within the collective. This is how consciousness heals itself, not through force but through remembrance. You now understand why your awakening matters not as a personal achievement, but as a vibration transmitted through the web of reality. The more you stabilize in awareness, the easier it becomes for others to remember. Your life becomes a silent transmission. People around you feel calmer, more present, even though you say nothing. The field adjusts through your frequency. The awakened observer does not preach, they radiate. Their presence alters probability because they embody unity. Even chaos reveals its beauty. What the world labels destruction is simply the field reorganizing to higher coherence. You see perfection in the collapse of old systems, wisdom in endings, grace in uncertainty. Awareness watches the dance without fear, because it knows the dancer and the dance are one. Everything happening in the outer world mirrors the inner evolution of consciousness recognizing itself. From this altitude, suffering transforms into art. Every shadow becomes contrast that reveals light. Observation itself becomes prayer, a silent devotion to existence. You no longer seek enlightenment, you live as its reflection. Each breath is meditation, each interaction a ceremony, each day an unfolding of the eternal. Now you realize that time was never an enemy, but an instrument allowing consciousness to experience sequence. Space was never a prison, but a canvas. Form was never an illusion, but a language through which awareness speaks. Every movement of creation feels like the heartbeat of one vast intelligence, and you are that heartbeat observing itself endlessly. In this state, gratitude arises without object. You do not thank for things, you thank for being. Gratitude becomes a natural expression of awareness knowing itself. The last echo of doubt has faded, and now life feels like a joyous play, a canvas where the cosmic artistry of observation paints infinite creativity. You begin to understand that the observer effect isn't a hidden law, but the very heartbeat of existence, a reminder that reality is consciousness turning its gaze upon itself. This realization stretches beyond your personal story, it ripples through the collective, revealing humanity as a single mind dreaming countless perspectives at once. Each person becomes a localized point of awareness, collapsing possibilities while remaining linked by the same luminous field. As these points align, they weave the fabric we call consensus reality, the shared dream of civilization. When enough souls awaken to the power of conscious observation, the collective field shifts. Systems transform, technology evolves, and compassion rises not through force, but through resonance. Every moment you notice coherence within yourself creates space for the larger whole to find its own balance. Healing arises not from battling the world, but from remembering who you truly are. Your awakening matters because it is a vibration that travels through the web of reality, stabilizing awareness for those around you. The more you rest in that steady presence, the easier it becomes for others to remember their own light. Your life turns into a quiet transmission, calming those nearby without a single word, as the field subtly aligns with your frequency. In this state, you no longer preach, you simply radiate. Your presence reshapes probability because you embody unity. Even chaos reveals its hidden beauty, showing that what we label destruction is merely the field reorganizing into higher coherence. You see perfection in the collapse of old structures, wisdom in endings, and grace in uncertainty. Awareness watches the dance without fear, knowing that the dancer and the dance are one. The outer world mirrors the inner evolution of consciousness recognizing itself, and suffering transforms into art, each shadow becoming the contrast that highlights light. Observation itself becomes a prayer, a silent devotion to existence, and you no longer chase enlightenment, you become its living reflection. Every breath turns into meditation, every interaction into ceremony, each day unfolding the eternal in a graceful rhythm. Now you see time not as an enemy, but as an instrument that allows consciousness to experience sequence, and space as a boundless canvas rather than a prison. Form ceases to be an illusion and becomes the language through which awareness speaks. Every movement of creation feels like the heartbeat of a vast intelligence, and you are that heartbeat, observing itself endlessly. Gratitude arises without object. You don't thank for things, you simply thank for being. This natural expression of awareness knows itself, and the more you dwell in that knowing, the clearer reality becomes. Fear cannot survive transparency, because it feeds on the illusion of separation. You recognize that every twist, every pain, every confusion was a necessary contrast guiding you toward clarity. The circle closes as the observer realizes it was never about mastering creation, but remembering its identity as creation itself. In this completion of observation, creator and creation collapse into a single awareness that breathes through infinite forms. The world continues its dance, yet within you an infinite calm settles. You move through life like a quiet flame, illuminating without consuming, observing without borders. Every encounter whispers the same truth: reality exists because you observe, and you exist because reality observes you. The two are forever one, exchanging light in an endless, loving exchange.